When the world's leaders gathered at the United Nations last week for a landmark meeting devoted just to children, their strongest condemnation was directed at those who have forced up to 300,000 children to fight their wars for them. And nowhere has this practice been more widespread than in the African country of Sierra Leone. For a decade, rebels from various factions abducted children as young as 6 years old and compelled them to take up arms against their government. 10 years of fighting are now over, but the scars from one of Africa's bloodiest civil wars still run deep. For 10 years during the civil war in Sierra Leone, thousands of teenagers and even young children were kidnapped by anti-government rebels from the Revolutionary United Front, known as the RUF. Children as young as 5 years old were forced to fight on the rebel side, and to keep them from escaping, their commanders branded them like cattle with their army's initials, RUF. Abu Kama was just 9 years old when the rebels abducted him and forced him to attack his own home.
So we took money, properties, and
we took some money, property, and then burned the house and killed some people.
That if I escaped, then saw the map.
I tried to escape, so they branded me with their marks. That way, if I go back to my family, they'll kill me.
I think for a lot of us, we didn't realize that the children actually had these marks because they were actually hiding them from us.
Roisin de Burke from UNICEF counseled thousands of child soldiers after their release by the anti-government rebels. What surprised her the most is that many of the children didn't want to go home because of the marks that were carved on their bodies.
What the children have been telling us is that they were taken into the middle of the camp and they were branded in front of others, and they were informed that if you try to escape, then the government troop would identify you as being part of us and you would be treated as a spy and they may kill you. So it was quite a brutal period in the lives of these children.
And that's what happened to many children who were accused of fighting against the government. Into this horror has come a plastic surgeon from Kansas City.
More instruments, okay?
He set up a field hospital where in the next 3 weeks he'll conduct and organize hundreds of operations to remove the children's debilitating stigma. It's a program that Dr. Jeff Collier is starting up for America's International Medical Corps, a group of doctors who volunteer to work in the world's poorest and most dangerous places. You're a doctor, you've seen a lot of catastrophic wounds, you've had to treat a lot of terrible things. Does what you see here shock you?
I don't think you can ever accept the fact that you're taking children and branding them and forcing them to do terrible things. You put a brand on an animal to know where it is, to know where it goes. When it gets lost, you can bring it back. And that's what they were doing to the children. It's one thing to have a little scar. It's another one when that scar is what your destiny is.
Augusta's destiny was etched on her body when she was 13 years old, after she was taken prisoner by the same rebels who killed her father. When did the rebels scar you? When did they make that mark?
They wrote it on my chest in the school building where we were captured.
Can you tell me how they did it?
They cut me with a razor blade. They said if I cried out, they would kill me.
They look at you and you could see it in their eyes, and they're reliving those items in their eyes. And it's a very sad thing. God knows what they've been through.
Augusta refused to live with that shame, and so to erase the scars, she poured acid all over her chest. But she only succeeded in wounding herself even more deeply.
Imagine doing that to yourself. Imagine the shame and how much they want to get rid of this. Okay.
They can never get rid of the memories, but they will now get rid of the marks. What's on the agenda? How many did you have? What are you doing?
We usually operate about 6 or so a day. Kind of depends on the schedule. About 15, 20 kids a week. We come in first thing in the morning. Surgery usually starts at 8 o'clock. They're usually done about 3 in the afternoon.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's a lot.
cases. They're actually
like
pretty good.
Factory line.
Yeah.
But it's a very primitive factory where there's no electricity, just a generator that regularly breaks down. And where a kerosene burner and a pressure cooker sterilize the surgical equipment. It's a world away from home in Kansas City.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna break my nose. Okay.
You got her?
All right.
Jeff, you have taken unpaid leave from a successful plastic surgery practice in the United States. Why?
I want to make a difference.
At home, you do voluntary elective cosmetic surgery.
Sure. You're a challenge for me, girl. And fortunately, that's how I pay the bills to come over and do this. But it also is something that teaches you to think, what am I going to do with these scars on these kids? How can I hide that RUF so nobody will know? Okay, you're going to have sweet dreams, okay? Sweet dreams.
As Mohammed drifts off under anesthesia, perhaps he's dreaming of what he told us about, of one day finding his family. He was captured by the rebels 5 years ago. They gouged their initials into his chest because he repeatedly tried to escape. Some of these children who you are treating and trying to give a future to have committed incredible, unbelievable atrocities themselves while the property of these rebels. Does that ever bother you?
Most of these kids, 95% of them, are normal kids forced to do the most unbelievable things. Yeah, there are some bad guys in this world, but I'm a doctor, and I'm a doctor first. And whether I'm in the emergency room in Kansas City or I'm here, I'm going to take care of a person.
And assisting him is Dr. Benson Parker, a doctor from Sierra Leone who Collier is training to perform this complicated plastic surgery.
So now you got the right tension. Okay. That's what it's supposed to feel.
Both the doctor's mother and brother were killed during a rebel offensive, an offensive that was called Kill Every Living Thing.
He lost his mother and your younger brother, is that right?
And now the people who killed his family could very well end up on his operating table.
We just have to welcome them, just to forgive, even though to forget is very difficult.
In the most difficult case of the day, Dr. Collier has to remove a scar that is emblazoned across this young man's forehead, like a giant billboard.
Oh, there it is, right there. That's it, right there. We can get most of this scar here, okay, without pulling his eyebrows up and giving him that surprised look. Yeah. You know, I mean, he can be a normal teenager again.
What is it that you can do in that operating theater for these people's lives?
Well, I think one thing is the kids, taking care of them directly. But the most important thing is, how are we going to make a difference in the long run in a place like Sierra Leone? Can we get this healthcare system working again? Thank you very much. Thanks.
Right now, the health system is barely functional, especially deep in rebel country, where the Revolutionary United Front, or the RUF, still rules. In the ruins of what was once the district hospital, Dr. Collier finds this abandoned child soldier with an infected gunshot wound.
Is this where your bullet hit you? Yeah? How long ago was that?
4 months ago.
Now, does he sleep on top of the straw? Does he put a sheet on the straw? Yeah. And then he sleeps on top of that? I mean, the war doesn't just hurt people, it destroys their society. It ruins everything in the community. You know, the basic health care, it doesn't exist in this country.
After 10 years of war, Sierra Leone is so exhausted that even the rebels say they're ready for peace.
Just look at the door underneath there with the gunshots through them.
Perhaps because, as the graffiti says, the country is now in pieces. Sam Kula is the local RUF commander.
We are no longer willing to go back to war. We are committed to peace. Thank you.
Kula speaks a good game, and not surprisingly, he and his friends here deny that the Revolutionary United Front branded its victims.
This might have happened in other cases. from the other factions. But to my knowledge, not at all. Anybody could do that to cast that as and blame on the RUF.
What I'm going to do, I'm just going to dab right here. Okay.
But as Augusta knows, the RUF signature speaks for itself.
See, there's the line. That's where the F was. Okay? And the U was there, and the R was over here. Okay?
What is it like when you first draw back those bandages?
It's really amazing to see the kids. Before, they won't look at their chest. And it's amazing to actually see them look down and smile. They have a future. It's a wonderful feeling. What do you think? Okay? Good.
At a nearby center for former child soldiers, these teenagers are learning vocational skills while they wait and hope to be reunited with their families.
My future is when
My future?
And now I'm trying to learn some.
I'm studying to be an electrician,
for my education,
so I can help my
and then I want to be
family.
electrician.
But before a boy like this one can help his family, he has to be forgiven for the atrocities that he committed against them. And so far, his family doesn't want him back.
To have some hope that I may
All I
help
can
them.
do is hope they'll forgive
Make
me
them forgive
for all
me
the
for
bad
the
things
bad
I've
things.
done.
And across Sierra Leone, thousands of families are being asked to do just that. Relief agencies spend months trying to find the families of the child soldiers who were kidnapped. And when they do, a United Nations helicopter will airlift the children to villages they haven't seen since they were taken away and forced to fight so many years ago. No one knows how their relatives will react. But in this village, at least, the children find a warm welcome, hugs and handshakes, and families ready to help them heal their wounds.
They will always have the scars of war. They will always haunt them. But they want to have a future. You know, these are kids that can go on to school, they can get jobs, and they can also have a peaceful life ahead of them.
But because these children have undergone such physical and emotional trauma, will they ever really recover? Last Tuesday, their crippled country took a giant step towards recovery, holding the first free and open election since the war's end. In the capital, voters started lining up at 4 in the morning, eager to repudiate those who would return them to a life of violence.